You will hear a number of different Section 1. You will hear a conversation in a mobile phone center between a customer and a mobile phone seller. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 7. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Good afternoon, madam. May I help you?
Oh yes, I'm looking for a mobile phone, but don't really know where to start. This one looks a very attractive phone.
Ah, yes, that's the Apple iPhone 7S 32 gig. It's very sleek and lightweight. It's only 140 grams. It's a classic look, packed with special features, such as a voice-activated service to assist you and built-in GPS.
The phone the customer first looks at is the Apple iPhone 7S 32 GB. So you should write 7S 32 GB in the space provided. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
Good afternoon, madam. May I help you?
Oh yes, I'm looking for a mobile phone, but don't really know where to start. This one looks a very attractive phone.
Ah, yes, that's the Apple iPhone 7S 32 gig. It's very sleek and lightweight. It's only 140 grams. It's a classic look, packed with special features, such as a voice-activated service to assist you and built-in GPS.
Well, I really only want a mobile which has a good camera and which is easy to use. Oh, and another thing, I don't want it to run out of battery all the time like some of those cheaper phones.
If you want an excellent camera, then this phone has an 8-megapixel camera for photos. You can also talk for up to 8 hours once the battery is charged. On standby, your phone will remain powered for up to 200 hours.
Oh, that sounds good. How much is it though?
You're looking at £22.50 a month on a fixed 24-month contract. The good thing is that there are no fees payable up front.
Yes, it's a bit pricey. What about this one?
That's the LG G8 phone. I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you when you learn the price. It's £40 per month.
For a 24-month contract?
I'm afraid so. But you're paying for several excellent features. The camera is a colossal 13 megapixels. You can also take still photos while simultaneously recording a video. Another good point is that it is remarkably lightweight at 149 grams, so it's only slightly heavier than the Apple iPhone we just looked at.
What is the battery power?
A lot more impressive than the Apple iPhone. Standby time is 565 hours and talk time 19 hours. It also has a high-definition screen that is second to none due to Quad HD technology. In fact, the screen has 4 times the pixel count of a normal HD screen.
I admit I love the look of the phone, but really it's way out of my price range. Oh look, that's a nice phone. The one with the flip top.
Ah yes, the Samsung DM S410. That's one of our more basic models, but it's still solid and reliable. Obviously it has hard keys rather than a touch screen, but it's very economical. It's only £20 for the handset, and it's pay-as-you-go thereafter.
What about the camera? Are the pictures of good quality?
That's where the other 2 phones I showed you earlier are far superior in quality of picture than this model. In fact, the camera doesn't even possess a flash. You're also very limited on your talk time. It's only up to 2.5 hours, and standby time is 75 hours. It's also fairly lightweight, considering it's not state-of-the-art technology. It weighs in at 131 grams.
Before listening to the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 8 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 8 to 10.
Well, all things considered, I reckon the Apple iPhone 7s 32 gig is the one for me.
Actually, I know that it's out of stock at the moment. We only have the display model to show customers. But if I put in an order today, it will be with you within the week, say around April the 8th.
Great!
So if I could just take your name and contact number, I'll give you a call as soon as it's in.
Oh, thank you. The name's Janet Johnson. That's Johnson with an H. And my mobile number is 0799 678 305 8378.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, madam. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you too for all your help and for your patience.
That's the end of section 1. You have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a scientist giving a laboratory induction to a group of new employees. First, you will have time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Welcome everybody to Browning Smith Laboratories. I'll be giving you a short tour around your new working environment and pointing out several key features. It's very much state-of-the-art, as I'm sure you'll see. Please now look at the plan of the laboratory building I gave you earlier. At the moment, we're standing in the large storage room. It's right there, positioned at the top on your plans and roughly in the middle. We've just come through the entrance door indicated, and that's now behind us. Okay, so got your bearings? All know where we are? Good. Let's continue our tour then and go next to the dry lab. As we go straight ahead down this corridor, the caretaker's room is the next room on your right. Immediately after are the unisex toilets. Now, let's go through these doors ahead of us and into the dry lab. Okay, so here we are now in the dry lab, which is the laboratory's biggest work area. If you look at your map, as we are standing now with the doors behind us, you can see the acid storage bin area clearly marked off to your right. Let's walk over there and take a look. You can see on your maps that we're standing in the far end of the building now. The acid storage bins are a hazardous area, obviously. If one of you should accidentally come into contact with not only these stored materials, but any other hazardous substance, then please proceed immediately to the eye wash emergency shower area. That's just back where we came in, right after the doors opening onto the dry lab, on the outside corner of the unisex toilets. I think those are the main features this end of the lab, apart from the chest freezer and cooler you see off to your right as you're facing the acid storage bins. The cooler area is divided into 2 sections. Okay, let's go and see the rooms now at the other end of the building. Now don't turn off to your left. That's where we entered the lab, if you'll remember. The next entrance off to your left, however, is the wet lab, which, if you'll look on your plan, is adjacent to the large storage area, but can only be reached by this entrance. Let's pass on by this lab and the clean lab adjacent to it and make our way to the small storage area. It's the first room through these doors ahead of us now. Please hold the door open for the person behind you as we file through. Good. I think that's everyone here now. This is the small storage area. And now we are at this end of the building. There remains for me to show you only one other room. You can see 2 doors leading off this room. The one ahead is an exit which will take you outside the building. The other leads to the walk-in cooler. Oh, there is one more area I need to mention. That's the walk-in freezer. It can only be accessed by leaving the building entirely, either through the exit I just pointed out or the first entrance we came in. I hope that's all clear now, but you will soon become more familiar with the general layout of the laboratory building.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Now, I'd just like to refer to health and safety procedure. This is essentially to fulfill basic health and safety requirements, since I know that you are not unfamiliar with such procedures and must know them off by memory. Okay, so firstly I'd like to say that if you are undertaking any project, whether supervised or not, all of you will be required to discuss it first with your health and safety coordinator. In certain cases, written approval is required. The health and safety coordinator has the final decision in situations where formal approval is needed. Everyone undertaking a project will have to first submit a form of a written standard operating procedure to the health and safety coordinator, outlining the steps and justifications for the experimental process to be carried out. Should the undertaking of a project not be granted initially, plans for the project, if satisfactorily amended, can be re-presented to the Health and Safety Coordinator for approval at a later date. Assuming acceptance of the undertaking of a project, strict laboratory procedures must be adhered to. Overalls and non-hazardous equipment can be kept in the large storage room. On no account can either laboratory clothing or samples be removed from the building itself. Obviously, the same goes for equipment that is portable. This way we can ensure that no cross-contamination can occur with samples or specimens kept in the laboratories. Finally, and this goes without saying, when hazardous materials are being handled, full protective equipment should be worn. Safety goggles and protective overalls are kept in the small storage room for this purpose. If using sharp, contaminated objects, such as needles, these can be temporarily stored in clearly marked containers on your laboratory work surface. However, they must be disposed of by the end of the day in the waste disposal bins clearly indicated outside the laboratory building. These bins are to be found just outside the exit by the small storage room. In the event of fire, please make your way immediately to the nearest of the two exits, either by the small storage or large storage room that I pointed out earlier. All that remains for me to do is to welcome you all to the company and wish you good luck.
That's the end of section 2. You have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear a discussion between two science students. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hi, Mark. Are you going to that lecture on microchip implant technology? I don't think I'll go. It's not that it's not a relevant field of study. It's just that it isn't personally relevant to me. If it were a computer science lecture, though, I wouldn't miss it for anything.
I know. Still, I think the concept of microchip implants is rather intriguing. Whether you like the idea or not, such a technology opens up so many possibilities. Almost everyone stands to benefit from it.
It just sounds so futuristic and like something out of a sci-fi novel to me.
Funnily enough, microchip technology was first predicted in a sci-fi novel over half a century ago. More amazingly still, the prediction didn't fall far short of reality either.
But what sort of person would implant a microchip in their body?
Oh, I don't know. Gadget and techie enthusiasts for one. Whilst we may not have the technology available at the moment to use their full potential, they will have uses in many fields in the future, I'm sure.
But doesn't the implantation of the chip hurt at all? I'd imagine it was quite painful.
Actually, from what I've heard, it's relatively painless. All you feel is a slight prick on your skin as a needle with the chip is inserted under your skin.
Just the thought of it makes my stomach turn. But isn't it quite unsightly? Doesn't the chip show up as a bump on the skin surface?
No, not at all. It's really minute, you see. It's so small it fits into the size of a thumbnail.
Well, it's certainly not my thing for sure.
I think you ought to come to the lecture, though. You might change your mind.
No, you go. If you find out anything interesting, then you can tell me. I'll be around on campus for at least the rest of the afternoon.
OK, you're on.
Great. We'll meet after the lecture then. See you.
Bye.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Hi, Mark. So how was the lecture?
You really missed out.
Really?
Yes, I learned so much. You wouldn't believe how microchip implants will improve our lives in the future.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, from the simple action of allowing us to switch on a light or mechanical device with a wave of a hand to accessing our medical records, microchips will prove indispensable to us in the future.
Indispensable wouldn't be the word I'd use for encouraging people to be so lazy that they can't switch on an electric appliance unaided. I thought remote controls were bad enough. I take your point, though, about using microchips to access medical records.
Also, using microchip implant technology can help secure buildings. Access of buildings in the future will be restricted to individuals with a specific code on their microchip implant. But at the moment, though, there are some problems with the technology.
Like what exactly?
Well, the microchip ID numbers of employees can theoretically be obtained and cloned by any individual standing close enough with a handheld device.
I can't say that I was really in favour of the idea when you first mentioned it. But now you've persuaded me. If it's so easy to breach security, then you're really defeating the whole point of the object, aren't you? By using microchips to secure a building.
Guess so. But there's another brilliant use for microchips that I haven't told you about yet.
Go on.
GPS-enabled chips.
Which are?
Well, microchips that tell you the position of an individual. Like a GPS that tells you the direction when you're in a car, but these tell you where someone is when they're lost and, say, if they're injured or in danger, they can be found easily.
So it's a bit like the microchips that are already used on pets?
Exactly.
Much as I can understand pet owners wanting to microchip their pets, I don't think the case of microchipping humans is as clear-cut. I mean, is it wise for an individual's movements to be known to everyone? That could place some individuals, such as political activists and those escaping persecution, under threat.
Doesn't seem like you're a great fan of microchip implants, then.
Their uses do at best seem rather limited. Well, you won't catch me having a microchip implant in the near future, that's for sure.
That's the end of section 3. You have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of a science lecture. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40. Now, I'm sure most of you will be familiar with the concept of drones, or unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs for short, to give them their technical name. If you are lucky enough, you may even own one. In fact, they are becoming so popular amongst gadget lovers that the sales of consumer drones were up by 24% in 2014. It is certainly a technology that is catching on fast and seems to have captured the public's imagination. People of all ages are seemingly fascinated by UAVs, whether the interest is professional or purely recreational. In fact, so far most members of the public tend to view UAVs as no more than a very sophisticated and expensive toy. As confirmation of this, Selfridges, the well-known London department store, has described them as the ultimate toy that spans the generations. However, in this lecture, I would like to talk about the more serious side to UAVs and how they may revolutionize the world of business as well as employment. With regard to the job sector, analysts predict that the market for drones could be worth billions. In the US alone, drones could create up to 70,000 jobs in this booming new industry. This would definitely be a boost to employment in a time where so many industries are replacing their workers with machines. The consumer end of the market, though, is a mere drop in the ocean. The potential for drones to revolutionize the way we do business is where the real opportunity lies, and Britain has the potential to become the world leader. Probably the most novel and groundbreaking use for UAVs is as an e-commerce delivery service. However, the idea has yet to get off the ground, literally. In principle, the idea is an excellent one. Consumers order items from an internet site, and the order is dispatched and delivered to your door by an unmanned drone within minutes. The mail-order giant Amazon first conceived of drones as a delivery service in the US, but plans stalled, leading many to question if the whole proposition was merely a marketing stunt. More likely, though, the proposed drone delivery service conflicted with aviation rules as laid down by the US Federal Aviation Administration. The biggest problem in the US is that they've invested $5 billion in a new traffic control system. But it was years before drones were on the radar. Therefore, aviation laws are not compatible with or accommodate for UAVs. The UK, however, has much more relaxed aviation laws. Drones are permitted as long as they do not fly in crowded areas, as defined by the Civil Aviation Authority. It therefore makes the UK a very attractive country to develop the e-commerce delivery system in. Whilst the UK is trying to set up and run a drone-based delivery service, Britain is already a leader in the field of drone-based aerial photography. If you think about it, the potential for such photography is huge. Not only does it allow you to take photos that could only previously be taken from an aircraft or even hot air balloon, but drones can get much closer to their subject. This is obviously a great advantage if taking photos of dangerous wildlife on safari. For the moment, drone-based aerial photography is especially popular for weddings. It's a bit of one-upmanship for the bride and groom, really. I think most people are bored with the usual cliched settings of a church with a countryside backdrop. Well, so far, I've talked about all the positive aspects of UAVs, but we shouldn't forget that there have also been some problems experienced by those using this technology. Many of the problems have arisen because of a handful of hobbyists who are giving the industry a bad name. The issue mainly is with cheap drones flown by people without licenses. Because in the UK, unlike the US, a driver's license is officially required to fly a UAV. When someone flies a drone outside a controlled area like a park, you're heading for trouble. Only recently, an accident caused by a drone made headlines. A photographer was injured in TGI Fridays when a stunt using a drone spectacularly backfired. That might be bad enough, But an even more serious incident occurred recently when a drone had a near miss with an Airbus A320 as it began its descent into Heathrow Airport. However, that said, with stricter regulations in place, Britain could soon see e-commerce delivery systems 24 hours a day and may become a leading centre for imagery shot by drones. It certainly is a burgeoning industry, where, if you pardon the pun, the sky's the limit. That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.